Hello and welcome back to episode 2 of the Stunner Safety Podcast and channel. I'm your host, Sydney. Today we will be talking about what types of self-defense tools should you carry if you have little or no self-defense training. So we're going to dive into what I mean by little or no self-defense training. We're going to dive into a little bit about less lethal versus lethal tools, what you should or shouldn't carry if you do not have a lot of self-defense training. So let's jump right in. What do I mean by little or no self-defense training? I would consider little or no self-defense training someone who, for example, only takes a self-defense class once a year or once every 2 years or not at all. I think that only being able to train in self-defense once or twice a year is not enough training to protect yourself in a scary situation. I did something called Krav Maga for about 8 months. I went 2 to 3 times a week, and that was all self-defense. So it's a form of martial arts, an Israeli self-defense for martial arts. And I did this training for about 8 months to familiarize myself better with self-defense techniques and ways to defend yourself actually against self-defense, lethal self-defense tools as well. And even after doing that for 8 months and going 2 to 3 times a week, I still did not feel like I could for sure get out of every safety or self-defense situation. Me being a woman, from my point of view, not physically stronger than probably most people, especially most people that are intent on attacking me or hurting me, I still did not feel fully capable of protecting myself. Now, benefits of it, yes, it helped me in so many different areas. First of all, awareness. I mean, our instructor would talk on and about being aware of your surroundings, spotting a potential threat before it becomes a threat. I mean, those classes are wonderful for doing that kind of thing. I really do think that everyone should take self-defense as often as I did for that period of time. You really learn so much about your surroundings and what could be a threat, and then how to get out of that before it ever turns into a threat. Another thing it was great for was feeling more confident in my abilities. I had to get into physical altercations as part of the class in a safe area, safe space, if you may. And at first it was very, very scary. It was very overwhelming, I'm going to be honest. Putting yourself in a physical situation, even if it's in a class where you're training for it, is scary. I mean, I was not confident. I was scared. It was overwhelming. But after you start doing it, week after week, day after day, you start to get more and more confident, and you start to feel like, okay, if I am in a physical situation, I feel like I have more of a cool head. My mind is more in a place where I can handle it. I'm not as overwhelmed. I do think that putting yourself in situations you can't control and then training your mind on how to get in control is immensely beneficial. So any self-defense, not just Krav Maga, but other self-defense classes, martial arts, all are great for those two things. Situational awareness, of being aware of your surroundings, the other people around your surroundings, and then becoming more confident in physical or threatening situations. I think those are two wonderful things. And yes, I did develop more strength. I did develop more abilities to try to remove myself from an attacker. But once again, that's something that needs to be trained every single week. I mean, every single week without fail, you need to be doing your self-defense training. And if you cannot do that, like 95% of Americans either choose not to or don't have the time to or money to dedicate to constant self-defense classes or martial arts classes, then you are in the category of not trained in self-defense. It's a really hard thing because the majority of Americans, of course, walk around every day and are doing the same things, walking in parking garages, walking at night, trying to get home safely, and they don't have that skill set or that training, and they don't have the time and the money to dedicate to that. So I'm going to try to talk about what I think you should do if you're in that category of people who cannot be or are not self-defense trained, because it is really different when you put yourself in a physical situation. I mean, some people freeze. There's, flight, freeze, or fight, and you just don't know what you're going to encounter. So once again, I'll just go over it. So take those self-defense courses, take those self-defense trainings, even if it's once a year. I still think it's extremely beneficial to your awareness. But if you're not doing it weekly, I would not consider you self-defense trained. So let's dive into the tools that I would say that you should not carry if you're not trained, and then the tools that you should carry if you're not trained. So we'll start, we're gonna do the less lethal or the non-lethal tools first, and then we're gonna go into the lethal tools. Once again, I'm not an expert in lethal self-defense necessarily. I've done a few classes on it. I'm much more experienced and have a lot more knowledge in the less lethal space. So we're gonna go over that first. All right. If you are not self-defense trained, going weekly, I do not recommend the following self-defense tools, and we're gonna break down each of them, and I can explain why I don't think you should be carrying these. 1, anything that requires high force for punching or hitting. That would include Kubotans, knuckles, batons, anything kind of in that category. The reason that I don't think these are a great self-defense tool for those who have not been training is 1, they do take strength training every week. You need to be physically strong to deploy them effectively. And by effectively, I mean, yes, you can hit someone with a Kubotan, a baton, some knuckles, but realistically, will that stop them from attacking you in a self-defense situation? Maybe if you're a very strong, large man, yes, or a very strong, large woman, yes, it's possible. But if you're not strong and you're not strength training and you're not stronger than the person that you're hitting, likely I think the damage to an attacker is too low to get yourself out of that situation safely and quickly. That's just my honest, realistic opinion. I mean, if you take a Kubotan with a metal point on the end and try to hit them with that, and you can talk to other self-defense experts out there, and I've talked to them as well. It's realistically not going to do the amount of damage for them to let go of you so you can get out of the situation. I think that those types of weapons require a lot more force behind them than the average person has. I think realistically it's just gonna bounce off them. Yeah, it may hurt a little bit, but not enough for them to let go of you. So I don't recommend any of these for people that are not training in self-defense weekly. Now, things that shoot out, tasers and pepper spray ball guns, something like that. Tasers are similar to stun guns. They're what the police carry. They shoot out 2 darts that create an arc and they electrocute you. So they're conductive energy weapons. They're shaped like a gun. What I don't like about these for people who are not trained is that you have to aim them at your attacker and hit them. You have to make sure you make contact with them. Now, the police are trained very much in these. I mean, they're trained in these in the police academy, and then how to deploy them. I'm sure they have monthly or annual trainings on their weapons as well and how to use that. But the reason I don't recommend it to someone who's not trained is you have to be able to aim and deploy it accurately. And if you miss, that's it. I mean, you already deployed your taser. You don't have another option at that point. So the reason I would say that if you don't have a lot of training, having to line up and aim in a situation where you're panicking and your heart's racing and you're overwhelmed, I don't think it's a good idea to also have to line up and aim at something. So this goes for the pepper ball guns, the pepper spray ball guns. Same thing, they're shaped like a gun. They shoot out like pepper balls or pepper spray out of them. And once again, you have to hit your target. And I I know what it feels like to be in a situation where you're panicking, you're overwhelming your senses. It's gonna be really hard to line up and aim. And once again, these are just my opinions, but I think if you have to think about what you're doing, it's not gonna end well. I don't think tasers and the pepper ball guns are gonna be good if you have to aim and hit your target accurately in a self-defense situation. That's just my opinion. Now, two of my least favorite self-defense tools that don't quite fall into the hitting, punching force. Well, I mean a little bit. One are something called monkey fists, and honestly, I hate these. They're a rope with a ball on the end that's made of rope, and it has something heavy in it. So it's kind of like you whip it and you hit someone with it, and they're short. They're only like this long. I mean, like this long. They have a ball on the end and a rope. These are bad for two reasons. One, you also have to aim with this one. You have to aim, you have to be able to hit them in like the head, an attacker in the head. And then two, you have to have enough force behind it to get them to let go of you or to get them to stop being a threat so you can get out of that situation. I don't like these. I don't ever recommend purchasing them. Don't waste your money. If you're not trained, once again, you're not going to be able to deploy these in an effective way to get out of the situation. I just think that the people selling these, I mean, they're kind of, I guess, like cool tools to have, but are they effective? Probably not. The self-defense rings or bracelets with like a point or a spike on them, most of them are plastic spikes, and even if they're metal, they're not super sharp, or they're like really short, like only a couple centimeters max in height. This goes again into kind of the needing force to deploy this correctly. I don't think you're gonna do enough damage with a self-defense ring with a point on it. Realistically, it's not gonna work. I mean, you also have to get close. So think about all these that you need to hit, have enough force. You have to get right up next to your attacker. Do you want to be right up next to your attacker? No, you want to get as far away from them as possible. And so I don't think the little point on the end of your self-defense ring or bracelet or anything like that is going to do enough damage to the attacker. And I don't think that most people have the strength training and the self-defense training to deploy a tiny weapon like that with enough effectiveness. So anything that requires punching, hitting, like coup batons, knuckles, batons, anything that you have to aim, tasers, pepper sprays, monkey fists. I don't recommend any of these less lethal self-defense tools for people who are not trained in self-defense. Now, let's move on to what I do recommend for people that are not trained in self-defense. I think these tools will be more effective and easier to deploy. And the reasons are because they don't take force, they don't take aim, they're simple and easy to use. Now onto the tools that I do think would be good to deploy in a self-defense situation if you do not have training. And the reason that I chose these is because they're easy to use, they're easy to deploy, they don't require any special strength or aim to do. So, start with the first one. Everyone knows this one, pepper spray. I think pepper spray is a great tool, very easy to deploy. It is just a red tab, usually, that you push down on, and a stream or a mist shoots out the front, and it covers a little bit wider area than, say, having to get a dart, right on the target. The reason I like these pepper sprays too is they're simple, and they don't require any force. You just push down, they spray an attacker in the face, try to aim for their face. Now, this one I guess does take a little bit of aim, but since it's a spray or a mist, it's going to cover a little bit more area than that pinpoint area that you would need for the taser to hit. I think that, and some people don't like that it could, if it's really windy It could spray back on you. I mean, be mindful of that. But I think overall pepper spray has been shown to be really effective also. The police have done, and the FBI have done analysis of pepper spray, and it has been shown to be very effective on attackers and stopping them from hurting you, and it gives you time to get away. So I love pepper spray for this reason. Yes, there's some form of an aim factor, but I think it covers a wider area than the other ones we talked about, and it's just super easy to deploy. I mean, no force is required. Now on to the second self-defense tool that I think is great, alarms and whistles, so things that make noise. These are great for anyone who does not have self-defense training, because most of the time you have to pull out a pin or press a button or blow on the whistle, and it doesn't require any special skills, doesn't require any special force, and it makes a loud noise alerting others to your situation. I think this is an obvious one for people with no training, because you don't actually really have to deploy anything. You don't have to deploy anything against an attacker. You're just drawing attention to yourself and the situation. Now, the one negative I think of the alarms and whistles is that it has been shown that some people, even if they see someone being attacked or harmed, and they're like a passerby or a bystander, they don't do anything. So I think having just that alone is probably not the best option. I think you should combine it with, say a stun gun, because you may be ignored in that situation. I hope that's not the case. But if you don't have any self-defense training, once again, this is super easy to deploy. You're not gonna hurt yourself. No aim required, no force required. Alarms and whistles, wonderful. Now on to stun guns. So you may be thinking, well, she said tasers are not a good option if you don't have training, but stun guns are. Now, the reason I say that is stun guns do not require you to aim. Stun guns are touch. So if an attacker is up close, you would touch your stun gun to an attacker and it would deploy. Now, this doesn't require any aim. You literally just touch it to them anywhere on them. I mean, there's some areas that you want to aim for that are more vulnerable, say like the neck area, under the arms, the groin, but they don't require any special force either. So you just press a button usually, or in the stunner's case, you would just squeeze a trigger as seen here. So this does not take me any special force to deploy. I just squeeze a trigger and then I touch it to them. So stun guns are great in that, little force is used, or no force is used, and then no aim is needed. And they're great for up close defense. I really recommend, even a combo of the long and short distance. So the longer the pepper spray to deploy that, and then the shorter distance, the stun gun. Last up on my list of tools that people with no self-defense should use, flashlights. Flashlights are great tools. Once again, they don't actually damage an attacker, but they can alert others to where you are, and they can be used to shine a light in the attacker's eyes, maybe giving you a few seconds to get away. If they have to turn around or close their eyes, you might get a chance to actually get out of that situation. And you're not gonna hurt yourself, I don't think, with a flashlight. There are some like tactical type flashlights out there that you can get with like a stun gun on the front. I just don't know the strength of those. And then there's some with like the serrated edge on there. But once again, that requires force, requires hitting. But I do think flashlights are a great tool for you to use if you are not self-defense trained. So let's go over one more time the less lethal tools that I think you should not carry if you are not trained in self-defense. 1, anything that requires force, punching, hitting. So Kubotans, knuckles, batons, self-defense rings with a point. I don't like any of that. I think that they're not gonna work for the majority of people. 2, anything that you have to aim and hit right on target. So tasers, pepper spray, ball guns, monkey fists, where you have to aim and make sure you hit it right on its point. I don't think that's great for people who are not self-defense trained. Now, the tools that I think that you should carry: pepper spray, alarms, whistles, stun guns, and flashlights. All of these are easy to use, easy to deploy, don't take specific aim, and don't take force to deploy. Now, we're gonna go a little bit into the less lethal versus the lethal, just to end our episode and round it out. I know a lot of people probably are asking about knives and firearms. Now, I'm not a firearms expert. I don't claim to be. I did take a firearms class, so I did take a training class for this self-defense tool, which I would recommend if you are going to purchase a firearm. And it was wonderful. I learned so much. Once again, I only did it once though. I think that I would want to do it at least once a year if you're going to own a firearm. It was also great with what laws you need to follow, because firearms have a lot more laws in place around them than the less lethal self-defense tools. So also keep that in mind when you're going to purchase anything in that category. And of course, there's tons of options: rifles, pistols, shotguns, all of those. I would really speak to someone who's more of a firearms expert before purchasing one of these tools, but I would not recommend buying a firearm unless you've done some form of training with the firearm. So that includes doing an official training class that maybe they would do if you needed to get a firearms permit. Even if you're in a state where they don't require a permit, you probably should get this class. And then doing trainings at the shooting range. Every couple of weeks you should be going to practice with your firearm. So if you aren't trained at all in a firearm, I don't suggest getting one. Knives, there's lots of different kinds of knives you can get. There's fixed blades, folding knives, and tactical knives. And tactical knives usually have like additional features, like serrated, or have like a window breaker on the end or something like that. I don't recommend getting a knife if you're not trained in self-defense. And the reason I say that is, if you have to deploy that knife, you're going to be close to whoever it is that's attacking you, and you have to defend yourself. Usually knives take more than one blow to be effective. If you're not trained and you have a lethal weapon on you, that weapon could also be used against you. Knives and firearms are taken from people who are not trained and don't know how to use their weapon. And since both of these are lethal, it could be used on you. I think there are just better options out there for those who are not trained. I don't think putting yourself in a situation where you're using a lethal weapon and then getting it taken from you is a good idea. I think that starting with a pepper spray or stun gun or flashlight is probably a better option. Unless you're trained with a knife, self-defense trained with a knife, I just think you may end up hurting yourself and still not being able to get out of the situation. Once again, these are just my opinions on all of these things. I encourage you to do your own research and obviously check your state and local laws before purchasing any of these items. But my whole point of doing this episode is I did get some self-defense training. I feel like it increased my awareness, it increased my confidence in not being overwhelmed in a physical, scary situation. But most of us are realistically not trained enough to defend ourselves. And so we resort to using tools. And choosing the correct tool is crucial. You should not be already in a self-defense situation and have the wrong tool on you. I think that finding a tool like the Stunner, which I created, which is a stun gun and pepper spray and flashlight all in one, is a good thing to have before you ever need it. So this whole episode is also just to encourage people to get proactive in their protection. So that means buy your self-defense tool now, take that training now, start doing trainings weekly if you can and can afford it. Being proactive in your protection and your awareness and confidence is just going to be so beneficial in any self-defense or safety situation. So I hope you guys enjoyed my thorough analysis and breakdown of the less lethal and some lethal self-defense tools. I hope that you go get a self-defense training. We would love to do one here at Stunner eventually. I think it would be great to do a self-defense training. Maybe even we could do something in person. So comment if you guys are interested in something like that. But go buy a self-defense tool. Go get out there, buy one. Even if you're not trained, buy one that I mentioned that you should get in that category, and be proactive. But yeah, Thank you guys so much for listening to episode 2, and stay tuned next week for episode 3. Have a great day.